Hey everybody, it is Alexandra with Optimum Joy, and I have Candace, one of our mental health therapists in the office, and we are going to be talking about therapy in the Black church. So, Candace, maybe just to start us off, why is this important and why is this specifically important to you as a topic?
Yeah, it's important to me because I grew up in the Black church, and it feels like there's no such thing as therapy. So personally, for me, it's made a huge impact. But it became important to me thinking about how I'm now pursuing this career in counseling and being a clinician and therapist. Um, and having that conversation with my dad and him wondering, why are you following this career path? And not another one. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense that if you have like grown up with the experience of seeing that it doesn't even exist and have found it to be something that are basically spending your whole career around, that
Yeah.
would be a pretty important thing for you. So
Yeah.
tell me, what are do you think some of the because if it doesn't exist at all, I would assume that there's some hindrances that hold people back.
Yeah.
So what holds, the African American and Black population, what holds them back um, when they're specifically like a Christian population too from therapy?
Sure. Yeah. And I obviously am not I don't know all of the answers, but I think these are the things that I personally deal with and other
Mhm.
Christian Black women that I know and men. And I think the around about five that I would say are huge to me would be money, time, whether that be time away from work, the
Yeah.
stigma, be the stigma and the verbiage of be stronger, get it together, and pray more. And I can break those down if need be, but those would be the ones that I
Mhm,
would say.
mhm. Well,
Yeah.
the be stronger one,
Mhm.
that sticks out to me, and specifically, Candace, because I think being in like the Western world, specifically in the United States, there is this kind of narrative about like pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yeah.
But obviously, look at me. I don't identify as a Black individual, but
Sure.
I have like learned a lot and even have like heard a lot about what it means to be like a strong Black female specifically. But
Yeah.
what do you think is some of that around the be stronger link? If you could expound on that as a theme.
Again, personal experience. I think a lot of it is get it together, but I would even say that it roots from where we come from, and
Mm,
that's a whole nother worm to get through. But I think our history as women,
mhm.
birthing our children, working, and even going as far back as like slavery, and just having to deal with things that are very uncomfortable.
Right.
And if I'm honest, I mean, for my generation and our family, my mom my mom is very strong, but she comes from a mom that raised 9 kids by herself. And that's a lot of stories. That's a lot of Black women's stories of raising kids by themselves, and there's no time to really think about it and or cry about it or to feel. So you kind of are left with be strong. So I would say it's rooted from there for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like be strong or you don't make it.
We don't make it.
So the
Yeah,
only option is to be strong.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And what about the pray more piece? Because that's like specifically we're talking about like the Black population within the church as not accessing therapy and stuff like that. So tell me about the pray more piece, because that is a specifically, Christian piece of what you've mentioned.
Yeah. So I've heard this throughout my entire life and from other people as well. And I'm sure people that are listening is, well, did you pray about it? That's one way of it. Maybe not pray more, but did you pray about it? And are you praying enough? And I think it comes from, are you close to God? Because it seems like you're not close enough to have Him fix the situation or
Right.
have Him come and intervene in on this situation. And so I think that pray more aspect is you're not doing enough to fix yourself.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Which is that's a hard concept when you think about just Christianity generally speaking, maybe not even just specifically within the Black community, because we are, like God is healer, God is like salvation. There's so many things that, like, if you ask God, like, he wants to give good gifts to his children. There's a lot of this idea that, like, if you have great faith, then there will be great deliverance. And
Yes.
I, want to be like, yes, of course, that is possible. And also, it's kind of an interesting thing that, when we think about mental health specifically, it's usually out of people seek mental wellness when it's not going well or there's a struggle. And there's something like unique about, sometimes God uses the struggle to transform us and uses struggle in our life, which is kind of inevitable, but
Right.
there is a lot of, I think, misunderstanding or narrative around if you can pray more about it, you'll be delivered,
Yeah.
which can be the case. And also, I think my experience, both as a person of faith, but then also a clinician and just a person living life, is that growth and change, it takes a
Mhm.
really kind of, it's slow and incremental and takes time. And sometimes there's bursts of it. And then a lot of times it's like, am I regressing? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like I'm going forward at all.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
100% agree with that.
What about just like any is there anything else you'd want to say about like what you think really kind of is a barrier to the Black community and the specifically like Christian African Americans about like seeking out mental health and the stigma around it?
Yeah. So I think a barrier sometimes could also be resources. And I know that's not something that
Mhm.
I fully put on there, but me as someone that knows therapy, it was it was kind of hard to find someone. But I think it's a little intimidating for someone that doesn't know someone that's ever had a therapist, um, doesn't really have any kind of recollection of what therapy
Right.
really means outside of maybe movies or TV shows. And so I think that knowledge is something a huge piece, but I think the stigma behind it is you're talking to this person about your life and it's kind of funny. One of the kids that I interned with, expected that only white males are therapists, and I was kind of like, "That's so incorrect because look at me," you know? And
Mhm.
so there are just so many different stigmas that are out there, and I think the stigma that I get mostly is the resources of not knowing it, and then also,
Mhm.
why would I trust somebody to just tell my life to? So, yeah, I would say that's my answer and understanding about the stigma for the people
Yeah.
that are around me.
That I think practically there's a lot of things that go into making it on a weekly, kind of typical on a weekly basis to meet with somebody and talk about your life. And it really can be a super unfamiliar process and a stigmatized process because I mean,
Mm,
historically, we've really only thought about mental health and wellness for the truly sick or the truly like broken or despairing type of people, and now so much preventative care, not only healing from hard things or trauma and stuff like going back and healing some of that, but also like prevention for going forward. We
absolutely.
are realizing that that's like a huge need in mental health for people to be mentally well.
Sure.
Um, but practically, money, time, stranger, all that, like not seeing a role model. And let's be honest,
Yeah.
TV therapists are the worst therapists in the world. And why are they always having inappropriate relationships with their clients? Let's
Yeah.
be honest, there's not a lot of good examples out there. So speaking of just like like if these are the practical hindrances, let's think on like what are some like resources or recommendations that you would have that would maybe be helpful to people um in actually like seeking out therapy or mental wellness, generally speaking.
Yeah. And I think I would even broaden it because I'm talking about a marginalized population. The organization and or the resources that I'm wanting to share is a lot of the times there are other things that are adding to their stress and maybe not wanting to seek therapy. And so the reason why I'm wanting this recommendation as a resource is it's a multifaceted resource. It has many other things on there, but mainly you can find therapy. And what it is findhelp.org.
Mm.
You put in your zip code. It's so awesome. It's completely upgraded and updated with COVID and everything going on. And you put in your zip code. And as you do that, there are links at the top of what you're looking for, whether it be food, transportation, whatnot. And these are things that people struggle with in general. And if we
Mhm.
can help in ways to do that, I think it would be great. But also, my main thing is therapy, and therapy's in there. There's group therapy. If you have or are struggling with any kind of addiction, there's addiction therapy, individual therapy. It's all on there, and they've got great resources. So yeah, findhelp.org would be my resource.
That's awesome. That's really practical. And I love that it almost matches what we know. Like you and I, clinician to clinician, or like even if you were ever in like a basic psychology class in like high school or college, you talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yes.
where
Yeah.
it's like before you can get to the tippy top of like self actualization and the like, I know myself, I know the world, you actually have to do the basic of like food, water, shelter, um, support from like relationships. We need some of these like basic things embedded. So I like that when we're talking about a marginalized community or just people in general too, that it really is like if you don't have a roof over your head, you got
Mhm.
to figure out the roof before you can have internal peace. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that recommendation. Well, Candace, it was good just to have this, quick conversation about like your experience as a Black woman and seeing like how there is just some barriers
Yeah.
to cultural barriers or just practical barriers in people kind of seeking out professionals like yourself.
Yeah.
So I just really appreciate you coming on here and encouraging people to be mentally well, regardless of if they ever see a therapist or not. And
Yeah.
I am very thankful. I mean, you and I are a testament to the fact that it's white old men are important in the therapy world. And also, I think you and I are a testament that it's not only white old men in
Yes.
practice now because representation matters,
Yeah.
whether it's being a woman or being Black or any other kind of um, identity
Sure.
based thing. So I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Well, have a good day. And thanks so much for coming on, Candace.
Thank you.